So I think one of the big things, actually why we chose Fulcrum up front, was the fact that they had entrepreneurial actual experience within the space. And so for us at Stax, obviously being a payments company, we met Jim Douglas, who came from Check Free, and it was an ability for us to have people that could absolutely step into the business and help us from a 20 to 30,000 foot view, not to come in to operate the business, but allow their experiences and history to help, frankly, Sunir and I have perspective. And so when you're in the business, you sometimes are so blinders focused on executing that it's helpful to have people that can help provide perspective that you may or may not see. And they never did it in a way of like, this is right or wrong, but more, here's some things for you to think about. Here are the challenges that we've seen across our portfolios. Here's how we've done it. Take that information and allow us to really use it as a sort of point of reference and then allow us to be able to have strategy around it. One of the big things that I really enjoyed about Fulcrum is obviously, I think there's a familial sort of culture within the folks that kind of work here and the interactions that you have. So for us at Stax, we have an ISV division, which is independent software vendors, where we integrate payments into them. I'm actually here today at a conference with Fulcrum, and ironically, maybe there's 30 CEOs or CXOs in that room, and 8 of them are customers of Stax. So the network went beyond just customer references, but whether it was, hey, we need a marketing strategy, or actually they probably placed our top 4 people in talent, from our head of sales, head of marketing, and head of payments, all came from references within their own network that allowed us to be able to recruit, contract negotiations, to partnerships, to customers. So it's really a holistic view of areas where they understood our business. And then what's cool is you can find like-minded people, right? So when you surround yourself in that format, you end up finding people that you enjoy being at and working with. And so they really helped bring a lot of that to the table. So one of the big things that is interesting is when we started off with Fulcrum, we were doing about 2.7 million in revenue. I'm happy to say today we do a little over 150 million in revenue. So you start to think about the growth and scale that we've gone through with Stax. It was wild to see what we went through, but the support structure that they had, from financials to being able to talk about M&A and integrations to new go-to-market strategies. And the one thing that I remember with Fulcrum is they never built a business for an outcome. They built a business to just be a good business. And I think that one of the big keys that Fulcrum drove for us was always driving innovation into the business and going back to that same strategy, which was, what does it look like to build a good business? And then the outcome will come. And so I think those growth strategies still today pay dividends, post-exit. I think more than anything, we developed friendship. I think that when you have new investors, I think the first thing you think about is like, you want to make sure that you are a good steward of the dollars that have come through. And a lot of times there's like this fear factor of messing up. So you have like this, oh shit, what do I do? Let's try to solve the problem before we tell the board, or et cetera. And I think the relationship that we built over time was one of a partnership where when something went wrong, they were actually our first phone call compared to the last, to really be like, this is what's going on. Don't know what I'm doing, or I do know what I'm doing. And it was always a collaborative conversation. It was never a, hey, you messed up or blank. It was always both of us on the same side of the table compared to being away from one another. And I think that relationship just continuously to this day, as I said, I look at them as friends and mentors that we still lean on. But it was a great experience and continues to be a good one. When you think about fundraising, I think dollars are easy actually to come by. I think the big thing that you need to figure out is who's the person or fund that aligns with your mission, vision, values, and that you want to partner and work with. We've had an opportunity to see a wealth of people that obviously one would like to be a part of Stax, and it's something that it's a privilege to be in the positions that we've seen. I think that our decision criteria has always started with human first, right? And so if you can create a human connection in an interaction, I think that allows you to understand when things are bad, what is it gonna look like? And I think it's easy when you're fundraising, most of the time your business is doing great. And so everybody wants to be a part of it. You're talking about metrics and et cetera, but what's it gonna look like when you miss your number? What's it gonna look like when there's a issue within the business that is meaningful, are you going to have the right support system around you to be able to help be there for you as a human? And I think that that's where we love to see that. And then lastly, I think you got to look at their operational experience, right? I think that it's important to have partners that don't want to drive or dictate your business, but that can help support your vision in the business. And I think that there's a dichotomy between the two, and sometimes people forget that. We had an opportunity to meet Jim, Philip, and Frank, and a couple other partners. I think for us, ironically, it was Serenbe. We hadn't taken an investment. They asked us to come down to one of their CXO conferences. And I think we had an opportunity to meet the rest of their C-suite executives that they had sponsored or financial sponsored within it. And I think getting to hear the perspective of those folks within a room allowed us to sort of see the way that their culture and operated. Another big one was actually the equality amongst the folks that we saw when it came inside of the room. And what I mean by that is you had analysts all the way to partners, but everybody had a perspective that was allowed to be at the table. And so for Sunir and I, we're minority, Pakistani, brother-sister team, female-led, and even seeing a culture that allowed, without titles, to have an inclusive opinion was just something that we hadn't seen a lot of times. You really have like dominant partners or dominant areas. And it created something that we felt excited about, that everybody had a voice at the table, and we felt that we could sit at that table.